love the channel and find it useful in becoming a happy retiree. Subscribe today.
What is Bitcoin? What do you need to know about it? And why is everybody talking about Bitcoin? Well, I'm going to run through everything that you need to know about this. Not new, I'd say yes, very new digital currency, very difficult to understand, but I'll break it down for you here in this short video so that now you can talk to all your friends and totally understand what Bitcoin is and really how it works, and really should you put any money in it or not. So thanks for being with us. Let me get to all of these important topics about Bitcoin, and we're seeing Bitcoin mania. It's happening right now, and here's why. Everybody's talking about it. It's everywhere because the price has gone from $1,000 per Bitcoin to almost $5,500 as we sit here today. So it's up 5x, and that's just since last December, so in less than a year. So anytime anything goes up 5 times in value, whether it's a vintage car or a piece of real estate or stock, people talk about it because you think, wow, I got to put $100 in it to be worth 500, put 100,000 in it to be worth 500,000. So of course our greed starts to say, hey, what is this stuff? Here's what it is. Bitcoin is just a currency like any other currency, the euro, the US dollar, the peso, but it's a virtual currency. And it doesn't have any sort of government intervention, and that's why, let's call it, there's a group of people that really like the fact that there's a currency that doesn't have any government involved with that. What's interesting is that each one of these currencies has its own unique little serial number on it that gets tracked, which is part of the magic behind Bitcoin, and I'll get into that in a second. What about the shadiness of it? Isn't it just for drug dealers and organized crime and murderers like Jamie Dimon from JP Morgan said the other day? Well, the answer is it did get a bad reputation. In the early days of Bitcoin, it was used by nefarious folks because you don't need a bank to transact because of the way the technology works with Bitcoin, which I'm going to explain in a second. So it got a really bad rap. Today, it's more and more mainstream. In fact, you can go online and see all the different businesses that take it. There are hundreds of restaurants around the country that are now taking Bitcoin. We've even seen big companies like Expedia. You can pay now with Bitcoin through Expedia for hotels. Dish Network, you want to get your TV and pay for your TV through Dish Network, you can use Bitcoin because it's like any other currency. Any currency like the dollar, the euro, we only give it value because we believe it has value. We have a trust that the dollar has a value. And because everybody else believes in it, it's a mode of currency. Well, what's interesting about Bitcoin is that as more and more people have believe in the concept of this virtual currency being long-lasting, more and more people accept it. So it's this virtuous cycle that it becomes more and more mainstream as more people like it or want to use it. How do you use it? Well, again, it's this esoteric idea. It's virtual, it's currency. Well, think about, you pull up your bank account at local bank, Bank of America, wherever you want. Your dollars, to some extent, in the world we live in, they're virtual too. You open up a bank account and you see a digital print of you have $500 in an account. You can go spend it. Well, it's the same thing with Bitcoin. You can have a digital account on an app like Coinbase, and from everything I can tell, and I use Coinbase for my little Bitcoin account that I have, it's just like opening up any other banking app or investment app where you open it up, you see a chart of the price of Bitcoin, and now you have a Bitcoin wallet that is worth X amount in whatever your currency is. And there's a lot to choose from on Coinbase. Mine's obviously in dollars. And I have X amount of Bitcoin worth X amount of dollars. And I can use that app to transfer the Bitcoin as a payment or convert it back into dollars or take new dollars and convert that into Bitcoin. So again, we think of it as this esoteric concept. It's really just any other, there's lots of different banks that do this or technology companies that are technically they're technical technology financial companies or fintech companies like Coinbase. You can use them right here on your phone and pay for stuff. Now, how do you acquire it? Well, first, like I just said, through a company like Coinbase, you can convert as much as you can convert $10, $100, $1,000 in one of these online banking apps. Number one. Number two, you can receive it as payment. That's another way you can get Bitcoin, or you can mine for it. And this is where it gets, I think, very fringe and very hard to even wrap your brain around. Let's just put it this way. Mining for Bitcoin is very complicated. It's effectively, there is Bitcoin out there in the Bitcoin universe, and you have to solve these very difficult algorithmic problems on the web in order to mine or get new Bitcoin. So it makes it really difficult to do that. That's a whole other conversation for another day. I look at it as a very math heavy or math intense virtual version of panning for gold. All right, next. Why is Bitcoin good? Well, really the reason that it's so good is not just because it's a new currency that doesn't have government intervention or a secure way to pay people. It's because of the technology behind Bitcoin, which is called blockchain technology. Again, super difficult concept to understand, but I'm going to break this down for you today right here in a couple quick, easy steps with an analogy. Blockchain is technically a new distributed ledger technology. What's a ledger? It's just a bank ledger. It keeps track of what you bought, how you deposited money, where you spent money. Or the ledger that would track what happened to your house. So this house was bought in 1999, then it was sold in 2002, here was the value, it got renovated. A ledger, if you will. Well, blockchain is a new distributed or public way to keep track of transactions in a highly secure way. Let me give you an example of how I look at blockchain technology. And we'll use the old game that we might used to play. I used to call it Whisper Down the Lane. I think that kids today call it a game of telephone. Some of you may call it Whisper Down the Line. Think of when you've got 20 kids in a room, you start with a phrase at the beginning, and then each person whispers to the next person, and eventually it ends up at something different from where it started. So let's say that you started in the old version of Whisper Down the Lane. You started with a phrase, let's say it's something like bologna sandwich, and you start and it changes little by little by little, and by the time you get to person number 20, bologna sandwich has turned into Barack Obama loves his sandwich. What? Well, little mistakes over time with old technology can lead to big irregularities. Here's playing Whisper Down the Lane using a form of blockchain technology. Well, look at it this way. Now let's say we're going to play Whisper Down the Lane. We're going to use blockchain. That means that every time we go to the next player, you have to re-verify with all the players before you in order to take your turn. And it has to be an exact match. So by the time you get to player number 5 in this long chain of people, bologna sandwich has had to be verified from player 5 to 4 to 3 to 2 back to 1. And in order for you to go to the next turn, it has to be perfectly correct every time. So by the time you get to player number 10 has to verify that same phrase, bologna sandwich, perfectly with player number 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. As you can see, it's a very different methodology of keeping track of data perfectly every single time. So this blockchain technology is the revolutionary concept behind using Bitcoin. Think Whisper Down the Lane, but a much better way to make sure that the phrase stays bologna sandwich from start to end. Now, this is this next part. I'm going to go through why using blockchain for Bitcoin actually really works. Well, number one, or is so highly secure versus what we're used to. Think of today, a dollar can be counterfeit. It can be copied. It can be stolen from a bank account. All these things happen on a daily basis with the traditional uses of currency. Well, here's how Bitcoin would be different. Number one, each Bitcoin has a unique serial number. Number two, that's every time you use your Bitcoin or a piece of your Bitcoin, you have to have some sort of encryption code. So each user has almost like a digital fingerprint. So you've got 2 layers of security right out of the gate. Number three, every single transaction gets stored in this giant library of Bitcoin transactions. It's called the public ledger. Well, if everyone can see all transactions of that one particular serial number going from person to person to person, well, there's this great way to track that. Think about a dollar can go to 1,000 people, and there's no track of where it went. Very, very different when using Bitcoin because of this blockchain technology. Now, number 4, who gets to look over this big database or this library of Bitcoin transactions. There's no Bitcoin king. It's that everyone in the Bitcoin universe, if you will, can look at this database. So everybody has purview of it, making it a public ledger. So if anybody ever tries to hack, that would be step number 4. Step 5, because all transactions for that, each unique serial code or number for each Bitcoin or piece of Bitcoin is tracked from person to person to person, it's very, very difficult to hack that data because it's using that blockchain technology. Just like my whisper down the lane example, it has to be verified and verified and verified. So if someone were to try to hack a Bitcoin, they'd have to hack each individual instance and change it that it's been used over its whole life history. Imagine how difficult that would be for any sort of hacker. So nothing is impossible, and I'm sure there'll be Bitcoin hacks as we move forward. But it's let's call it 1,000 times more secure using blockchain technology than traditional currencies. Now, that's the good news about Bitcoin and why some of the merits. Why is it bad? Well, it's bad because it's still a brand new currency. It only came out in 2009. So the price is just an absolute roller coaster. Yes, it's been great if you bought Bitcoin back at 1,000. Now it's over 5,000. But every chart that I've ever seen that looks like this, so Bitcoin chart looks like this crazy half pipe, meaning that it started out here and all it's done is gone up, 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 up. It's like a half pipe that's gone a mile to the sky. I have never seen a chart like this end very well, meaning that typically you end up with some giant sort of correction here during the course of the lifetime, whether it's a stock, a currency, the value of real estate. Sure, it could come back up, but it's going to be very, very volatile over time. So that's why I don't really believe in using it as some sort of, I wouldn't be betting any retirement on this. I wouldn't bet big investment pools on this. I know I recently read about a family, I think from the Netherlands, that sold their house, their car, everything they own, and they put everything into Bitcoin. Well, today they look kind of smart, but the minute Bitcoin crashes in value, it's going to really hurt. So I just be very careful with getting too overly involved because the value is so unbelievably volatile and unpredictable, something like 5 to 6 times more volatile than the stock market, and most of us know how volatile the stock market can be. Sure, I keep less than 100, but I have Bitcoin. I've converted US dollars into Bitcoin. It's gone up in value, at least for now. But I keep less than $100 in my Coinbase account because I literally use it to pay golfing, my losing golfing bets. That's the only thing I use my Bitcoin for, at least so far. I haven't used it on any of these big websites yet at all. So that's the deal. It's a very complex topic. I know that you might hear a millennial talk about it and they act like they understand it, but do they really understand it? Well, now hopefully you understand it. You understand the good behind it, the blockchain technology, which, by the way, the technology itself can be applied to almost every industry on the planet. We saw IBM recently come out. Their earnings look really good because of their involvement with blockchain and cloud computing. The two go hand in hand. So there's a lot you'll hear a lot more about blockchain technology in its own right, not just Bitcoin. Be careful about how much or how heavily you get involved with Bitcoin. But hopefully this has been a great lesson on what to do. And now you can intelligently talk about this very new complex subject called Bitcoin, or a new version of whisper down the lane. Use that analogy as you explain this to your friends. Again, Wes Moss here. Thank you so much for listening. You can find me at wesmoss.com, WESMOSS.com. Email link up in the right-hand corner. Those emails come straight to me. Follow us on Facebook, Wes Moss Money Matters, and on YouTube, Wes Moss Money Matters as well. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Hi, I'm Wes Moss, and thanks for taking a minute to hear about what's so different about my new book, You Can Retire Sooner Than You Think. So unlike other retirement books, this book will give you a step-by-step guide, whether you're in your 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s, to learn from what these successful and happy retirees did to get there. I hope you enjoy the book, but more importantly, I know that it'll help you retire sooner than you think.